Do you remember when you first discovered glitches in Pokemon? I remember when I did. Summer 1999, at Kingswood Summer Club. Pokemon Red and Blue was released the previous year, which I guess would make me 8 or 9. The Pokemon craze was in full swing over here in the UK. Every day, I packed up my Pikachu Yellow Game Boy Color with Pokemon Red permanently slotted into its top. My friends and I would get together with our link cables for epic trading and battling sessions that lasted the whole day, or until our parents came to pick us up. Around midsummer, our group was starting to feel like we'd seen it all and done it all. Sure, I didn't think we'd ever caught him all. Back then, it seemed like an impossibility. We had grinded to level 100, eliminated the Elite Four more times than we could remember. The game was starting to lose its draw, and there was still 4 long weeks of summer left. Then, we saw Missing No. I remember the first kid I knew to have him. He told us that his brother showed him how to catch this super rare, super awesome Pokemon. We gathered round as he revealed that Pokemon to us, that magical distorted reverse L shape that held the key to infinite rare candies. We were all instantly in love and dying to get one of these rare Pokemons for ourselves, so he passed on the secret and showed us how. Within the next few days, our little group was hooked on glitches. We scoured magazines for the latest bugs and tricks, we visited Glitch City, battled all kinds of high-level Pokemon off the coast of Cinnabar, we even caught Mew. But there was one glitch which I've never been able to find record of since. Funnily enough, I can't remember the details of how to pull it off, but I remember the outcome: Glitchlett. The technique for finding this little guy followed the pattern of a lot of the tedious Pokemon encounter bugs in Red and Blue. Talk to this dude, fly to this place. It might have had something to do with Celadon, I'm not sure really. Glitchlett was just as you'd expect, a glitched up Diglett. The sprite was mostly intact, but the face was distorted, Missing No style. There were a few distorted lines through it, like scan lines, and the cry was a little weird too, although I can't put my finger on what it was. His level was never visible, but we guessed it must have been over 100, as we could hardly put a mark on him while trying to catch him. Most of us resorted to one of our many cloned Master Balls. We nicknamed him Glitchlett, and that night we were eagerly trying to figure out what this guy could do. The next day, we all met up to compare results. By this point, we all considered ourselves Pokemon glitch experts. Experiences with Glitchlett were varied. One guy claimed it messed up his game so bad he couldn't play it anymore and had to reset. Others said they tried to battle with Glitchlett only to find the game crashed every time they tried. I had the most luck in battles with this new glitch Pokemon. His only move was Dig, and he couldn't learn any HMs or TMs, even those you'd expect a Diglett to be able to learn. Against wild Pokemon, Glitchlett was a powerhouse. He never lost PP, and together we'd one-hit KO'd every Pokemon we came across. But the attack itself was odd. It took 2 turns as usual, but after the first turn, he'd be hit with some kind of self-damaging recoil. There was no explanation other than Diglett was hurt, and that strange cry, but it never made much of a mark on him. Glitchlett's HP was higher than anything I'd ever seen, and because it took only 1 dig to destroy any wild Pokemon, it was never much of a problem. I laid waste to my friend's team during linked battles, and he soloed the Elite Four. I remember when things got even stranger. I was leveling a team using the EXP Awe. Destroying wild Pokemon with Glitchlett seemed the obvious choice, and I'd maxed many Pokemon this way in the past. I'd woken up early that morning to level especially, and had spent all day KOing wild Pokemon. At that time, I was under my bed covers with my trusty Game Boy Color Light. Mom would go mad if she knew I wasn't asleep at this time. Everything was going to plan, and my new team was leveling up beautifully. I must have been concentrating pretty hard, because it was too late when I noticed how low Glitchlett's health had become. I selected Dig for the final time and watched him begin to descend into the ground. As I expected, I received the message Diglett was hurt. I heard that piercing cry louder than before, and my stomach turned as I watched his health bar slide down towards zero. The bar doubled it back on itself and seemed to empty 4 or 5 times before Glitchlet repeated his dying cry, now a horrible noise. Diglett was killed. Do you want to use the next Pokemon? I know it's cliche in these kinds of stories, but I remembered that vividly. I selected no. My other team members wouldn't have made a mark on this enemy Pokemon anyways. I warped to the overworld and found myself back in the unknown dungeon. Opening my Pokemon menu confirmed what I've seen before. My beloved Glitchlet at the top of the party. Health reduced to 0. I selected him. I'm not sure what good I thought it might have done, and noticed that something was different. Maybe it was there before, but I think I would have noticed that Dig was now selectable outside of battle. I thought for a moment, maybe it was the atmosphere, but this move was suddenly chilling to me. Glitchlet had never been damaged by any wild Pokemon, only by this move. It wasn't even as though he's hurt himself in the confusion or with recoil. Whatever had hurt and ultimately killed him had been underground all along, waiting, sapping Glitchlet's life each time I sent him to attack. His death cry echoed in my ears as I realized what I'd done. My thumb hovered over the A button, my brain willing myself to dig and get out of the cave, but my stomach felt sick. What was down there anyway? I was stuck with no choice. The exit was too far away. My remaining Pokemon would be destroyed if I tried to get there. With a lump in my throat, I dug, and my sprite began spinning into the earth and the screen went black. I wasn't surprised when I realized where I was. Not the entrance to the cave or even the nearest Pokemon Center, but a glitched out cave that I now realized was some kind of bug of Diglett's cave. I checked my Pokemon and saw Glitchlet's health had been restored. He was now my only Pokemon, the other 5 members of my team missing entirely. I chose Dig again. Oak scolded me. Apparently, this wasn't the time to use that. With no means of escape, I set off looking for the exit. My sprite moved slowly, more of a crawl than a walk. As I moved, the cave's wall bugged out, turning red, flexing and swelling in and out like the lungs of a monster. Slowly, music began to play, high-pitched and distorted and horrible. It was quiet at first, but grew louder with every step. As it played, something became familiar, a familiar tune beneath the whirring, bug notes. Without thinking, I began to mouth the words to the music. Diglett dig, Diglett dig, trio trio trio, Diglett dig, Diglett dig, trio trio trio. Then I encountered a Pokemon. A wild Dugtrio appeared. As the distorted battle music began, the level 225 Dugtrio appeared before my eyes. The cry was an awful warped scream that seemed to be a gnashing crunch before stopping entirely. Dugtrio's sprite, like Glitchlett's, was deformed. Dugtrio's 3 faces with hollow eyes twisted into pixelated howls that looked somehow painful. The bottom of the sprite was unrecognizable. It looked as though 6 deformed clawed arms were rising from the dirt around Dugtrio's body. My only Pokemon was released, and Glitchlet's back sprite appeared before me. His cry played again, quiet and seemingly a lot weaker. I was just a bystander now as the game took control, selecting an attack from the menu. Of course, Dig was the only option. My hands were sweaty as I gripped the Game Boy tight. My breath was hot and on the screen. Dugtrio went first. Dugtrio used Scratch. It hit 6 times, each tear triggering the pitiful cry from my glitch Pokemon. Glitchlett was left with a sliver of health as he retaliated with an attack of his own. Diglett used Struggle. It hardly made a mark, as expected, but it was strange how Dig had never lost PP before. As previous, the game selected the next move. As attack was chosen, I noticed that Glitchlett suddenly had no moves. 2 words appeared where the first 2 attacks should have been. No hope. Dugtrio's cry echoed again as it launched an assault of scratches with its deadly, horrible arms. Glitchlett was killed after the first strike. Diglett is dead. Do you want to continue? I didn't really understand the question, but that didn't matter. No was selected for me and the battle faded away. Back on the overworld, the walls swelled and glitched before my eyes and the maddening music began again. I inspected Glitchlett. His sprite had changed now, although his face was never visible. Like Doug Trio, it seemed to be formed into a pixelated screen. The dark brown streets cut through the sprite. They looked like claw marks, or blood. I pressed on. I don't know what I was thinking at that stage. Just that this tiny Pokemon had infected my game in a much bigger way than expected. Glitch Pokemon seemed kinda wrong to me then, as though it was something I ought not to have been messing with. Something we didn't understand or couldn't control. With no Pokemon left, I was surprised to find that I didn't black out or warp to a Pokemon Center. The game just continued as usual. It was only a few steps before the Pokemon encounter theme played and the screen turned black. A wild Dugtrio appeared. This Pokemon sprite was different to the last, almost completely disfigured. The cry seemed as though it wouldn't end, screaming and wailing as a pixelated monster appeared on screen. Through the glitches and cut pixels, I could make out the hollow sockets of 8 eyes, 8 terrible clawed hands, and a gaping mouth. With no Pokemon left, my trainer's back sprite faced the glitch head on. Before my eyes, the screen faded as my Game Boy's batteries cut out. Whatever had just happened gripped me with fear. That night, I didn't sleep. I even took the game out of the now dead Game Boy, although I'm not sure what that would have done. Days later, I started that game up. I had not saved during what had happened, so I was returned to my last save point. Glitchlett was at the head of my party. Dig his only move. I thought for a moment, before abandoning that game forever and starting anew.
Definitely elevating for the 966. The ill suicidal liable to take titles and make vital signs, but not like no cancer. Answer, there's no chance to advance to ya. Kuya got blazed through ya. The great super science, applying pressure. I desecrate with double O's and bubble folds while I cut you, bro. I juggle flows that goes ballistic, reminiscent of exquisite cannibalistics and a sadistic doctor. My sick shit knocks ya improper.